Hey boys and girls, and welcome to your next STEM lesson for the term. I hope you had a good time last week playing with the magnets and having a look at an introductory activity to our topic this term of force. So, today we're going to be having a little bit of a further look at our forces. However, for this week we're going to specifically be focusing on our pushing force. So we know that if we're going to give something a push with our hands, we are going to aim to move it away from us, okay, in an outward direction. A pushing force, like we saw in our magnets last week, is aimed to move something away from us. And we might use that force on quite a regular basis without even thinking about it. However, when we use that force, we don't even think about the fact that sometimes we only have to use a little bit of that force, and other times we have to use a lot of it. So if I, for instance, was to use my pushing force on this little ping pong ball, I might be using a different amount of force than I would be if I was to push away this bigger basketball. And I might need an even bigger amount of force if I was to try and push a whole planet away. Not that we're going to do that in our lesson today. So, if I wanted to use a pushing force on my little ping pong ball, I can do so really gently. And away it goes. However, if I wanted to push away my basketball, as I said, I'm going to need to put a little bit more force on that object because it's quite a bit heavier than my ping pong ball. So it's going to take more of my energy and more of that force in order to move it. Let's have a look. A pushing force is a really important force that we use all the time. Okay, you might use it at home, at school, at the shopping centre. Have a think about where you might use it without even thinking about it. Maybe you used it to get in and out of your house already today using a door. So, your activity for this week is going to require you to get a pencil and paper and to use a bit of that pushing force that you've got inside you. Down the side of your paper, you're going to write down 10 objects that you're going to try and use a pushing force on. Those 10 objects need to be at your house so that you can get this activity done today, or at least before our lesson next week. After you've written those objects down, you're going to go around and give them a bit of a push using that force we've been learning about today. However, I don't want you to just give it a push and then move on to the next object. When you're pushing it, I want you to think about how much force you have to use to push it away from you. And you're going to rate it on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being that you barely had to use any force at all to make it move and that it was quite light and easy to move. And 5 being that you had to use quite a lot of force to get that object to move away from you. Thinking about whether there's any similarities or differences between the objects that only needed a little bit of force to move and the objects that needed a lot of force to move. So remember, we are really focusing this week on our pushing force. That is what I want you to be thinking about when you are doing this at home today. And in our next lesson, we're going to be doing something very similar using the other type of force I talked about last week as well, if you remember that. Otherwise, I'll tell you about it again next week. Please make sure you're tuning in every week to complete your STEM activity. I hope you've been enjoying them, and I can't wait to see you all back at school in a couple of weeks and to hear about all the exciting experiments that you conducted at home. Thanks, boys and girls. Bye.